The word was a blade, and it severed her soul. I, Alpha Jackson of the Blackwood Pack, reject you. Illyra's breath hitched, a fragile thing caught in the cavernous silence of the great hall. The words echoed, each syllable a hammer blow against the crumbling walls of her hope. She stood on the ceremonial dais, the moonlight from the high arched windows painting her in silver and shadow, exposing her for all to see. A worthless hybrid, a stain, half-wolf, half-moon fey, belonging to neither world and reviled by the one she was forced to inhabit. For a fleeting, foolish moment, when the golden thread of the fated mate bond had tugged her toward Jackson, she had allowed herself to dream. Jackson, the most powerful alpha in the Northern Territories, his face carved from granite, his ambition a fire that burned in his eyes. He was her mate. The moon goddess had chosen him for her. It had to mean something. It had to mean she wasn't the curse everyone said she was. But the look on his face when he'd finally turned to her, a sneer twisting his handsome features, had shattered that dream into a million glittering shards. He hadn't even bothered to learn her name. I reject you, half-breed, as my mate and future Luna. He added the last part for the benefit of the hundreds of wolves gathered, their eyes like predatory jewels in the dim light. A ripple of murmurs, of cruel, satisfied laughter spread through the crowd. The pain was physical, a white-hot agony that ripped through her chest, clawing at her heart. The bond, meant to be a source of strength and life, was being violently torn from her spirit. It felt like dying. Worthless. The word whispered through her mind, a familiar poison she had been fed since birth. Unwanted. Filth. Her own pack had always treated her as an unfortunate secret, a reminder of a forbidden union. Now the entire world knew. Her fated mate, her one chance at belonging, had cast her aside like trash in front of everyone. Her knees trembled. The stone floor felt like it was tilting, the faces in the crowd blurring into a vortex of contempt. She could feel their judgment, their scorn, their relief that their powerful alpha had been spared the indignity of a hybrid mate. Her vision swam, black spots dancing at the edges. She stumbled backward, a strangled gasp escaping her lips. This couldn't be happening. The shame was a shroud, suffocating her. She was in a faint. She was going to collapse here, at the feet of the man who had just destroyed her, and be nothing more than a pathetic spectacle. She felt her body give way, a dead weight surrendering to gravity. She braced for the jarring impact of the cold, unforgiving stone, but never came. Instead, she fell into something solid and warm. Strong arms, coiled with a power she had never felt before, encircled her, breaking her fall with impossible gentleness. A scent, not of the damp earth and common wolf musk that filled the hall, but of ancient pines of the first winter frost, and something else, something like starlight and ozone, filled her senses. It was a scent of absolute authority, of timeless strength. It didn't just block out the stench of the crowd, it annihilated it. It was a calming balm on her shredded nerves, a whisper of peace in the storm of her agony. Through the haze of her fading consciousness, she tilted her head back, her eyes fluttering open one last time. She looked up into a face that was not part of the mocking crowd. He was a stranger, cloaked in shadow, yet his presence eclipsed everyone in the hall, including the alpha who had just rejected her. All she could see clearly were his eyes. They were not the cold silver of a wolf or the flat black of a human. They were molten gold, swirling with an ancient light, like captured nebulae. And in their depths, she saw not pity, not disgust, but a terrifying, possessive fury. A rage not directed at her, but for her. A voice, deep and resonant as a rumbling earthquake, spoke a single word, a word that seemed to shake the very foundations of the hall. Mine. Then, the darkness finally took her, and she knew no more. She woke to the gentle crackle of a fire and the impossible softness of silk against her skin. For a moment, she was suspended in confusion, her mind a placid lake before the memories came rushing back. Jackson's face, the rejection, the pain. A sob caught in her throat, and she squeezed her eyes shut, wishing for the return of unconsciousness. But the agonizing tear in her chest, where the bond had been ripped away, felt different. It wasn't gone, but the edges of the wound were no longer jagged and raw. A strange, humming warmth had settled over it, a soothing pressure that kept the pain at a manageable distance. She slowly opened her eyes. This was not the pack infirmary. This was not her own small, cold room at the edge of the territory, with its threadbare blanket and straw mattress. She was lying in a colossal bed, carved from a dark, polished wood and piled high with velvet blankets and pillows so soft she felt she might sink into them forever. A grand fireplace, large enough to stand in, cast a warm, flickering glow across a room of breathtaking opulence. Gilded furniture, tapestries depicting epic battles between wolves and ancient beasts, and a ceiling painted with a swirling cosmos of silver stars. Fear, sharp and cold, pierced through her confusion. Where was she? Who had brought her here? Her tattered, ceremonial dress was gone. In its place, she wore a simple, elegant nightgown of the finest white silk. Panic began to bubble in her chest. Had she been taken? Was this some cruel joke? She pushed herself up, the silk pooling around her. The room was silent save for the fire. But she was not alone. She could feel it. A presence, vast and powerful, lingered in the shadows of the room, as tangible as the heat from a hearth. It was the same presence she had felt just before she fainted. The scent of pine and winter frost was here, woven into the very air she breathed. "You are awake." The voice came from a high-backed chair near the fire, its occupant hidden in the deep shadows. The sound vibrated through her, not just in her ears, but in her bones, in the very marrow of her being. It was the voice of a king, the voice of a god. It was the voice that had claimed her. Slowly, the man rose from the chair and stepped into the firelight. Alara's breath caught. He was even more imposing than she remembered. Impossibly tall, with shoulders broad enough to carry the weight of the world. He moved with a fluid grace that belied his immense size. He wore simple black trousers and a loose-fitting tunic, yet he radiated more power and nobility than any alpha she had ever seen draped in ceremonial furs. His hair was the color of midnight, a stark contrast to the burning gold of his eyes. Those eyes were fixed on her, and their intensity was a physical force, pinning her to the bed. He was the stranger from the ceremony, the one who had caught her, the one who had spoken that single, impossible word. "Who are you?" she whispered, her voice hoarse. "Where am I?" He walked toward the bed, each step silent and deliberate. He stopped a few feet away, his golden gaze sweeping over her, not with lust, but with an unnerving mixture of reverence and possession. "You are in my chambers, in the citadel of the moon's peak," he said, his voice a low, hypnotic rumble. "As for who I am called Valerius." The name meant nothing and everything. It was a name from legends, from stories told to frightened pups. Valerius, the Alpha King, ruler of all werewolf packs, a being of immense age and power who had not been seen by the common packs in over 500 years. A myth, a ghost, a king who ruled from a throne of shadow and rumor. It couldn't be. The Alpha King? The words were a disbelieving breath. A small, almost imperceptible smile touched his lips. "I am." Alara stared at him, her mind reeling. The Alpha King had been at her mating ceremony? In disguise? Why? And why had he brought her here? "Why?" she managed to ask. "Why did you help me?" His expression hardened, the fury she had glimpsed before returning to his eyes. "Because what I witnessed in that hall was an abomination. That pup, Jackson, is a fool. A blind, arrogant child who was given a treasure and threw it into the dirt because he lacked the senses to recognize its worth. His words were a balm and a confusion. Treasure? He was talking about her, the worthless hybrid. He saw what everyone sees," she murmured, looking down at her hands, unable to meet his gaze. "A weak, tainted half-breed. He did the right thing for his pack. He did the most foolish thing of his insignificant life," Valerius corrected, his voice sharp as obsidian. He did not see a half-breed. He saw a threat to his fragile ego. He sensed a power in you that dwarfed his own, and it terrified him. So he struck first. Using shame as his weapon, Elara shook her head. Power? She had no power. Her wolf was small, her Fey heritage granting her nothing more than a faint silver shimmer to her eyes and an affinity for moonlight that the others called unnatural. You're mistaken. I am never mistaken, he stated, the words an undeniable fact. He took another step closer, and the air crackled with his energy. Tell me, Elara, when the bond with that fool snapped, what did you feel? The question brought the memory of the agony rushing back. Pain, she choked out, like my soul was being torn in two, and now. He pressed, his golden eyes searching hers. What do you feel now? She focused inward, on the wound at her chest. The humming warmth was still there, stronger now that he was near. It felt like a connection, a pull, a resonance that vibrated in perfect harmony with the immense power radiating from him. It was a bond. But how? It doesn't hurt as much, she admitted. There's something else. A warmth. That warmth is the call of a true bond. Elara, he said, his voice softening, becoming thick with an emotion she couldn't name. The moon goddess is not cruel. She is wise. She did not give you to that whelp. She used him to test you, to reveal you. When he proved himself unworthy by rejecting you, he forfeited his claim. His pathetic bond was severed not to leave you broken, but to make way for the one that has been waiting for you for 1,000 years. He reached out, his large, calloused hand gently cupping her jaw. His touch was electric, sending a jolt of pure energy through her entire body. The warmth in her chest bloomed into a radiant fire, chasing away the last vestiges of Jackson's cold rejection. It was a feeling of coming home, of being found after being lost for a lifetime. He was a mistake, Valerius murmured, his thumb stroking her cheek. A temporary placeholder until I could find you. I have been searching for centuries, my queen. I felt the echo of your soul across continents, but it was always faint, hidden. Tonight, his rejection was like a flare in the dark, a scream that led me directly to you, queen. He called her his queen. Her mind couldn't process it. Outcast, hybrid, worthless. Those were her titles. Not this. I don't understand, she stammered, overwhelmed. You are the other half of my soul, Elara, he said simply, his golden eyes blazing with conviction. The moon goddess did not make you weak. She made you perfect. Your hybrid blood is not a curse. It is a gift of unimaginable power, a royal lineage long thought lost. You are the last of the Lycaean Fae, a line of queens destined to rule beside the Alpha King. He didn't reject a half-breed. He rejected his destiny, and in doing so, delivered you to yours. To me, just then, a commotion erupted outside the chamber doors. Shouts, the clash of steel, and a familiar, arrogant voice barking orders. I'm Alpha Jackson. I demand an audience. The king has stolen my property. That hybrid belongs to me. Valerius didn't even turn his head. A low growl rumbled in his chest, a sound so primal and threatening that the very stones of the castle seemed to vibrate with it. The shouting outside ceased instantly. He learns his lessons slowly, Valerius said, his gaze never leaving Elara's. He offered her his hand. Will you face him with me? Not as his rejected, but as my queen. For the first time in her life, Elara didn't feel fear. She felt a spark of something else. Anger. Strength. The warmth of the bond with Valerius was a shield around her heart. She looked at his outstretched hand, then back to his golden eyes, which promised not just protection, but a shared throne. She placed her small hand in his, and his fingers closed around hers, a perfect fit. She was not worthless. She was a treasure. She was a queen. She nodded. Yes, the great doors to the throne room swung open. Jackson stood there, flanked by two of his best warriors, his face a mask of fury and entitlement. He had clearly tracked her scent here, his arrogance blinding him to the suicidal folly of his actions. When he saw Elara standing beside the imposing figure of the Alpha King, his hand held firmly in hers, his jaw dropped. Ew, he snarled, pointing a shaking finger at her. What is the meaning of this? You're my reject. You have no right to be here. Valerius guided Elara forward until they stood on the top step of the dais, looking down on Jackson. The king's presence was suffocating, an aura of pure, ancient dominance that had Jackson's warriors instinctively lowering their heads in submission. Jackson, however, was too proud to bow. "She is a worthless half-breed I cast aside," Jackson spat, trying to regain his footing. "She is of no value. Her value is beyond your comprehension, child." Valerius's voice boomed through the hall. "You stood before the last heir of the Lycan Fae royal line, a being whose single drop of blood is more pure and powerful than your entire bloodline, and you called her a stain?" Jackson paled, his eyes widening in disbelief. "Lies! She is nothing." "She is my mate," Valerius declared, the words sealing Jackson's fate. "The true mate granted to me by the goddess herself. A bond that makes your pathetic, severed connection look like a spider's thread next to a chain of mountains." He lifted their joined hands. "You did not cast her aside. You delivered her to her throne." He turned his golden gaze to Elara, his expression softening. "It is time." Before she could ask what he meant, he lowered his head to her neck. She felt not a sting of pain, but a searing, ecstatic heat as his teeth gently grazed her skin, marking her. A brilliant silver light erupted from a spot, forming a glowing mark of a crescent moon encircled by a wolf. The light pulsed through her, healing the last scar of Jackson's rejection, filling her with a power so immense it made her gasp. She felt her senses expand, felt the lifeblood of the kingdom, felt the ancient magic of the citadel humming in tune with her own heartbeat. She was whole. She was powerful. She was home. When she opened her eyes, they were no longer just silver-flecked. They were glowing with a soft, ethereal light. Jackson stared, his face a canvas of horror and dawning, gut-wrenching regret. He had rejected a queen. He had insulted the Alpha King's chosen. He had thrown away unimaginable power and status for the sake of his pride. "For your arrogance, for your blindness, and for the insult you paid to my queen," Valerius said, his voice dropping to a deadly calm. "I, Valerius, the Alpha King, strip you of your title and your lands. You are Alpha no more. You are banished. You will wander the barren lands as a rogue, and every wolf in every pack will know your name and your shame." Jackson fell to his knees, finally broken. "No, please," but Valerius had already turned his back on him, his attention solely on Elara. He gently cupped her face, his eyes full of adoration. "My queen," he murmured. Guards dragged the weeping, pathetic form of the former Alpha from the throne room, his cries for mercy fading into the stone. Elara stood beside her king, her mate, looking out at the grand hall, no longer a victim, but a ruler. Her journey through the ashes of rejection had led her not to despair, but to a destiny greater than she had ever dared to imagine. Later that night, they stood on a balcony overlooking the kingdom, a sea of glittering lights under a blanket of stars. The moon, full and bright, seemed to bless them. "You were not a curse to be hidden," Valerius said, his arm wrapped securely around her waist. "You were a secret to be protected, until the world was ready for its queen. Until I was worthy of finding you." Elara leaned her head against his shoulder, a true smile gracing her lips for the first time in memory. The whispers of worthless that had haunted her for so long were gone, replaced by the steady, powerful beat of her mate's heart next to hers. She had been born from two worlds, not to be an outcast, but to unite them. Her strength was not a flaw. It was her birthright. Her kindness in the face of cruelty was not weakness. It was the mark of a true leader. Jackson had seen her as a hybrid, a thing of mismatched parts. Valerius saw her as a whole, perfect and complete. He saw her, and in his eyes, she finally saw herself. Her past was a story of pain, but her future was a saga waiting to be written, a song of love, power, and redemption, sung in the heart of a king and his fated queen. If you were moved by Elara's journey from rejection to royalty, please show your support by hitting the like button. Subscribe to our channel for more tales of fated love and epic destinies, And don't forget to comment below with your favorite moment from the story. We love hearing from you. Join our pack and never miss an adventure.